I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war.
We're here.
We're here. Let's get this big-ass water bottle out of the way. All right, what's up, guys? Fernando Petty here with UVO Group right here in the UVO Podcast studio. Today we are joined with co-host Alen Kantarevic.
Kantarevic.
Yeah, there we go.
We are here.
Everybody in the podcast today, we have a special guest, my personal friend and also personal nutritionist, also Alan's personal nutritionist, Justin Mancuso.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, wrong one. There we go. I'm going to get this down one day.
That's legit.
But this is not your first podcast. I saw you did a few of these with Brad.
Yeah, I've done a few.
Yeah.
Did some other ones just with other nutrition coaches as well, too. So
nutrition coaching. I talked to Brad about this a while ago on the podcast. When I first got introduced to it, I first heard about it, right? You guys are doing it. I thought to myself, nutrition coaching, like that's got to be hella expensive. Only like the rich and famous can afford that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I told you that too. Like that's really what a lot of people think.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. And I guess I really didn't know how easily accessible it was for people like me. Right.
Well, most people just think it's a like luxury thing that's super expensive, and it's like people often confuse nutrition coaching with also personal training, which is two different things. You know, one and the same, but they're both totally different. Like when people ask me if I'm a trainer, it's like I have training certifications, but I don't actually train anybody in person anymore.
Oh.
And, you know, I did a few years ago, but that's just, it's really hard to get someone results when you've got 3 hours a week with them in the gym and then they go home and they eat pizza and ice cream, and 6 months later they look worse than when you started. It has nothing to do with me as a trainer. It's all their nutrition, right? And it's hard to, you know, help people really make a change when you have no control over what they're eating, you know?
Yeah. So I remember years ago when you were skinny fat.
Yeah.
This is before you got into it.
Yeah.
I remember that. And you were just getting into it. Like, I mean, you started taking it really seriously just with yourself because you had a coach who was training you.
Yep.
And I saw your transformation, and I had other people who were doing similar stuff, and I saw their transformations, and I was like, why do they suck so bad? You know, and I realized it's because the discipline that you had is unlike a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
You're a pretty disciplined person.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I think getting sober, you know, I got sober when I was 19, right? And it's like after you go through everything, like obviously I'm from LA, came out here to go to rehab, get sober. I was, you know, 2011. Actually, next week will be 10 years that I've got sober, that I've been here. You know what I mean?
Dude, congrats.
Yeah, March 4th.
Shit, man.
And so, you know, it's all like perspective. Everyone thinks it's so hard, but it's like once I got sober, it just gave me a unique perspective of like, okay, nothing's ever going to be this hard again, right? I came out here, no friends, no family, completely started over, had ruined my whole life, right? Had to rebuild everything from scratch and do it sober, and I'd never done that before and had to figure that out, you know? And it's like after doing that, nothing else is really that hard, you know? It's like this idea that things are difficult. It's like after going through that, it's like nothing's ever going to be this hard again, right?
Yeah.
Like if I can get through this and do this sober, nothing will ever challenge me to the same extent ever again, right? And so, you know, I always tell people, like if when I first got sober, you would have said, hey man, all you got to do to get sober is you just eat chicken and rice 7 times a day, every single day. I would have been like, where can I sign my name for that? That's easy, right? Compared to what I got to do with this, you know? And so after going through that, it's like I always look back on that, like, okay, this is nothing. I did that, right? I got through that, did that. I can easily eat the same thing if I have to eat the same thing every day for. I don't care if it takes.
But you
6 months.
But you don't do that because, and that's what I thought originally, right? Because I signed up and I'd done something like this before in the past, and it was that very basic, very boring, chicken breast, brown rice. I fucking hate brown rice, by the way. The flavor is absolutely disgusting, right? And so I'm like, oh, I got to do this again with broccoli too. Oh my gosh, how can I do this more than a couple weeks, you know? And so it never lasted for me, and I feel like a lot of people still do the same thing. They still think that same mentality. And then I started learning, you know, from you, because you were a client of mine when I used to cut hair, and you'd always be like, dude, white rice is... It's not bad. Like you can have white rice too.
Yeah.
And so I was like, really? Like I can have white rice? Like that just blew my mind. I could actually eat white rice and lose weight. Just one thing, right? And so I started getting educated with you, and then I signed up, and I've lost almost 40 pounds. And I told Brad this last time. I'm like, dude, I feel like I haven't really been doing much. Like I've just changed my eating just a little bit.
Yep.
And I'm eating more, which is awesome. And it's working. Like I don't hit the gym either.
Well, and the funny part is this, most people have this preconceived notion of like healthy, right? Like we label things as healthy and not healthy. And the truth is there's no real definition of healthy or unhealthy food, right? Like what is a healthy food? Does that mean it's got, it's not processed, it's got 10 grams of protein, it's got 5 carbs, it's got low fat, it's not, no high fructose corn syrup. Like what does unhealthy mean? Does that mean it's, got high fructose corn syrup, it's got sugar in it, it's got high fat? Like, so you got to take these labels of healthy and unhealthy foods and just kind of throw those out the window and say, okay, all we're left with is like a healthy portion or an unhealthy portion. If I eat 3 egg whites, that's a healthy portion. If I eat 40 egg whites, it's not a healthy portion. It doesn't matter if it's an egg white, it's still not, it's not healthy, right? And, ultimately what it comes down to is like balancing out the ratios of the proteins, carbs, and fats that you eat to help your body like maximize fat loss, right? And doing that, you can use whatever carbs you want. If you don't want to eat brown rice, don't eat brown rice. I haven't eaten brown rice in like probably 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
I don't like it, so I don't eat it.
Yeah.
And people that think you can't get results without that, it's like it ultimately just comes down to your calorie deficit, not the specific carbs that you're using to make up that calorie deficit. It's whatever ones that work for you the best, whether that's quinoa, couscous, sweet potato, red potato, yam, brown rice, white rice, egg noodles, pasta, regular pasta, wheat pasta. Like it's all a cup of whatever is going to be the same calories pretty much. And so it doesn't really matter like the specifics of it, as long as the macros add up at the end of the day and they work for what your goal is, they'll help you lose fat or gain muscle or whatever it is you're trying to do. Yeah.
So the reason why I want to get you on here, number one, the first reason is I definitely want to help. First of all, get people to understand that in order to, if you're seeking help, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get in the right mind state, if you want to build confidence, right? All these things help you as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
I want them to see that it really isn't that expensive, and so we'll go over pricing with you, obviously, here in a second. But I want people to see that it's not that expensive, and it's not that hard, right? And it is. People like you are more accessible than I think people think. Yeah. Right? The second thing is, you told me something when you and I first started working together, which was like 6 months ago, right? You said, I'm telling you right now, you said, when I work with people, they always look at the price, and it's not even expensive at all, but people say, oh, I want to make sure I can afford this, right? Yeah. And you said, people will tell you, I want to make sure that I can afford this. And you said, dude, you shouldn't ever look at that, because the people that I work with, what happens when they start to lose weight and eat better, they start to think better, they think more clearly. It starts to help their confidence, or their confidence goes up, and next thing you know, they start to achieve more and do more, and the next thing you know, their bank account gets a lot bigger. Yeah. And that started to happen. Right?
That's
so
true.
I thought it was pretty funny, because I'm like, I didn't put those two together, but really confidence, plays into, if you're an entrepreneur and you're confident, man, you'll get so much further along than anybody else. And so I wanted to hit that with you. Also want to go over, which we didn't go over with Brad as much, but I know you guys both have worked together. You guys both have an enormous amount of knowledge in the way the mind works and cognitive function. And being an entrepreneur, you did mention this to me, and I didn't realize this, was how much stress we carry and we deal with on a daily basis compared to somebody who works a 9 to 5. Yeah. It's a lot different, and it really fucks with your body, of course, carrying that around if you don't know how to manage your food. And so let's talk about some of that stuff.
Well, people don't really realize that, if you are disciplined in one area of your life, specifically with food, it just rubs off to a lot of other areas. At least that's my experience, right? Like when I'm firing on all cylinders because my body's fueled, I feel really good, I have consistent energy, I'm not crashing during the day, I'm a lot more productive, I tend to get a lot better results at whatever else I'm doing as well, right? It's not just like, I only excel in my nutrition and that's where it stops, right? It just bleeds over into everything, kind of the same way that can impact you negatively when you're not eating properly and your blood sugar is really low and it's all over the place and you're in a slump, right? Like how, when you're firing, you're on, you're running at 50% capacity, how well do you really expect to do with everything in your life? Not just, it's how you show up to work as a boss, how you show up as a husband, how you show up as a father. Like all these areas are all directly impacted by really the food that you put in your body, And the funny thing is the people that, typically complain about the price, it's like, well, that's expensive, but you know what else is really expensive? Like having type 2 diabetes is really expensive. Medical bills for prescriptions and refills and doctor visits. Like that stuff's really expensive. And like, if you were to look back and you have all these medical expenses, 6 or however long down the road, you're going to wish you could have paid a couple $100 a month for that nutrition coaching now to offset that. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like preventative care, if you will. It's like, okay, it's like my therapist would say all the time to go to a therapist is not in crisis. It's before, right? Yeah. So you can develop the skills to handle everything better, right? And so the time to go to a nutritionist is not when, the doctors, after you have a stroke, right? Like it's before, because you can do things to prevent all that stuff, And I mean, people just, I don't think are aware that this is as accessible as it is. Like you said, people think this is like only, celebrities or whatever, people have nutritionists, when in reality, it's like, this is something that everyone can benefit from. I've got clients, my youngest client is 11 and my oldest client is 71, right? So there's no age parameters that you have to, you can't do it if you're this age, or you have to do it if you're this age. Like at any point you can make a change whenever you're ready to and get the results and get, change things for the better.
Yeah. So Alen, you've been doing it. You signed up just recently.
Mm-hmm. Like 5 months now? 4 or 5?
Yeah. It's been 5 months.
Yeah.
It's been like 2 months.
No.
There's no way it's been 5 months.
2 or 3. I think about 3.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I feel good.
Yeah.
Either way, I feel good.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure with me, you had a lot of fun trying to get creative, because I'm allergic to pretty much everything. But we made it work.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in, like multiple days I would come in, and I'm just like, dude, I feel like shit. I feel tired. I feel drained. Yeah. I'm over there yawning in your office. It's 6 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, why do I feel tired? Why do I have no energy?
Right.
And the reality is I was not getting enough food in me, and the right foods as well.
Yep.
On top of that, I have to do some testing as well to find out exactly what foods they can have, which ones they can't have. There are certain ones like I'll have, and they affect me because I'm allergic to it.
Right.
So we've had that conversation multiple times too. Yeah. But I've noticed. What you put in is what you get out at the end of the day.
So what can Alen have? Alen gets the brown rice, chicken, and broccoli, huh?
No, he just has, because of, a lot of the food allergies he has, like, the name of the game for really just like longevity and feeling good and being healthy long term is like inflammation, right? That's like a really good biomarker. You can track, how long someone's going to kind of be here, right, and feel good, and, is based off inflammation, right? So if someone's allergic to something that's going to cause inflammation, the more of that stuff you can remove, the better they're going to feel. The reason a lot of people can't lose fat is because their body's got a ton of inflammation, and because they're eating sugar and they're not eating, nutritious, nourishing foods, and that slows them down. And it definitely makes fat loss harder. It makes consistent energy harder. It makes everything you're really trying to do a lot harder, right? And so when you eliminate those things, all of a sudden people get results. And funny thing is most people come into me and they're like severely under eating. Like I've tried eating 1,200 calories, and then that didn't work, and then I tried 1,000, then I tried 800, and like no one ever thinks, well, why don't you try 1,800? Well, why would I do that? That's way more food. And it's like, well, because the chances are your body's getting so little that it's not cooperating because it's holding on to everything it has because it's not getting enough. And when you give it enough and you give it the right foods, enough portions, enough protein, enough carbs, and enough fats, all of a sudden it cooperates and does what you want. And next thing you know, you're eating more food and you're burning fat and you're dropping fat. And the scale's going down. Your clothes are fitting better. You have more energy. And it's like no one ever thinks of that, right? It's like they just think, for me, it was like, okay, when I was 10 years old, my mom would be on a diet. It's like, okay, I knew she was trying to lose weight. She was eating less and she was not in the best mood because she's doing whatever it was, right? So at a young age, I learned, okay, to diet or to lose weight, you just eat less. And I think that's a lot of people everywhere.
I thought
that is something that I still battle with.
Right.
I swear.
And the reality is that the shift you need to make is I'm going to eat more food to burn more fat, right? And that is a hard shift for people to make. But once you start doing it and you feel better and then you start losing fat, once I can get someone 1 week to eat more food and then lose fat, they buy in, right? It's not like I have to convince them. It's like, okay, look, do this for a week. Let's see what your body does. Let's test your body fat, see what your measurements are doing. Let's see how you feel. Give it a week. What's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah.
But you think you're going to gain? How much weight could you really gain in a week eating these clean foods, right? It's not really going to happen. They eat the food, they come back, they're like, how did I drop? I don't know. Well, your body's not fighting you every step of the way anymore. You're finally giving it what it wants. It's wanted this whole time. Now, all of a sudden, you're dropping fat. So you're eating more food, and you feel better, and you're able to burn more calories, right? It's like there's two schools of thought. It's like I can either, if you're training for something to lose fat, I can either increase your calorie deficit by taking your food away, or I can increase your cardio. So eat the full cup of rice and throw in an extra 10, 20 minutes of cardio. You're going to feel better, and you're still going to get the same results, as opposed to restrict all the food. When you restrict all that food, how hard is someone really going to work out when they have no energy, right? Like, how hard can you really push it when you're running on fumes at the end of a long work day after you've worked 10 hours and you're going to the gym? Like, you got nothing left. How hard can you really push it, right? If I give you more food and you have more energy going into that workout, now you can burn more calories and you're going to feel better.
Yeah. You know, the crazy thing is when I hit all my meals every day and all my snacks.
Yeah.
So this is one of the issues that I've had, right? Mm-hmm. Being so busy is like, I'll prep my food for like 3 days. Mm-hmm. And then by the third day, I'm so busy, I can't prep for the next 3 days. And so I'll like miss a day or miss 2 days or miss 3 days. And then I'm like, shit. Yeah. Right. And then I start over again. But what happens to me mentally, or during those days is like, maybe the first day will go by and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling pretty full by like 11 o'clock in the morning because I had my breakfast and I had my snack, right? Yeah. But then like 11:30, 12 o'clock comes around and I'm already like fiending for the next like meal, right? And so I get it in and then and then again, after the meal, 20, 30 minutes later, I'm like, shit, I'm hungry again. Where's my snack? And I'm like, holy shit, I'm eating all day and I'm still hungry, but I feel like I'm energetic. Yeah. I'm in a good mood. I feel like my body's actually like working like optimally, right?
Right.
And then when I hit the day where I run out of my meals because I haven't prepped, like I'll go like a few hours and then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm like in storing mode or something because I haven't eaten all day.
Right.
And I can feel my energy levels just drop down so much. But then I'm like, wait, okay, I still got through the day. I feel like not the best. I feel weak. Honestly, I feel weak.
Yeah.
But it's like I think for some people they figure, and again, I've been there and I'm still battling this where I'm like, okay, I have to eat less in order to lose weight. Like, it's so weird when you feed your body more and it's like good nutritious food.
Yeah.
How much more your body wants to eat. Like, well, it's so crazy.
And that's how it's supposed to work, right? Like, you're essentially by spacing out your meals into smaller meals and smaller snacks, what you're saying is you're giving your body this, it's going to eat. You're going to eat this meal or snack. It's going to burn through that whole snack. And then an hour later, like, it's burned through. And now you're going to hopefully be burning fat, right? For the next hour or so. Then you eat your next meal or snack. And that process repeats itself 5 or 6 times throughout the day because you've removed all the sugar. You've removed all the things that are going to cause these big insulin spikes in the body and actually prevent your body from burning fat. So by removing all those, we allow your body to burn fat all day. And that's what it does what your body does what we tell it to do, right? If we tell it to store fat and we give you a surplus of calories with high sugar and, a low protein, it's going to store fat. Because that's essentially what you're telling your body to do based off of the breakdown of the food you're giving it, right? If you're giving your body adequate protein paired with adequate carbs and fats at a calorie deficit, there's no way you're not going to lose fat. It's not physically possible. It's not my opinion. It's just science. It's how the body works, right? It's taking, what we know about the metabolism and the science behind that and just applying that to your body, right? How many calories do you need to exist every day? Okay, let's find that number out, and then let's put you at maybe a 15% calorie deficit from that number. Let's make the macro breakdown, whatever we have it at, right, where it's you're eating roughly 50% carbs, about 30-ish% protein, and 20% fat, and we space that out over 5 or 6 meals. And by doing that, we've removed all the things that are going to stop you from burning fat, and now your body's just going to do exactly what we tell it to do based off the foods we give it. So when you eat what you're supposed to, that's exactly what happens. And when you eat a ton of extra sugar and all that sort of stuff, you're telling your body to store fat, that's exactly what happens too, right? Like, your body doesn't get mad, it doesn't get sad, it just takes what you give it and it either stays the same, goes up, or goes down. There's no opinion, there's nothing, there's no emotion into that at all. Your body does exactly what we tell it to do based off the food you give it every meal, every time you eat, right? And that's where people that are like, well, how does this work? It's like, because you're telling your body to do this based off the food you're giving it. It's not, it's not like my opinion that you will lose fat if you follow this. It's like, I'm not guessing here, right? I'm like calculating what you need, taking that number, dividing that into a calorie deficit of whatever percentage we want to start at, and then programming it with foods you like, and then letting your body do its thing, right? Yeah. It's not like, oh yeah, I think this is going to work. Maybe this number will work for you. Maybe it won't. Yeah. It's like, no, this is how it works.
That's what I love about working with you is that you got the craziest recipes. Yeah. Like, yesterday, my wife came home yesterday, right? And she's like, oh, hey, by the way, did you know that, Kodiak.
Yeah.
Kodiak. Did you know Kodiak? Because we eat the Kodiak pancakes, the protein pancakes, right? She's like, did you know that they make graham crackers? And I'm like, I had no idea they made graham crackers.
Yeah.
All right, okay. They make graham crackers. She's like, if you pair the graham crackers with this chocolate syrup and you put it with this yogurt, it's like a cheesecake yogurt.
Yeah, it's like a marshmallow flavored yogurt with some sugar-free chocolate syrup and some honey flavored graham crackers.
How the hell do you lose weight with that shit, man? That's so crazy. But it tastes good, and we got it yesterday.
Yeah.
And like I had mine today. Yeah. And I feel like I'm like
you're cheating.
Yeah, like I'm cheating.
But that's how it's supposed to be, right? If I can get you to like the foods you're eating, it works with your schedule, and it tastes good, chances are you're going to eat it. If you're going to eat it, you're going to lose fat. 10 times out of 10. There's not an opinion in that statement, right? That's just a fact. So that's where my job comes in. How can I make it so you like your food, and how can I make it so those things happen? Because if I do that, you're not going to want to cheat. You're not going to want to feel like I'm so restricted, right? Because I'm only eating chicken and brown rice, where I can only hold on for so long, and then the wheels fall off and I go off the deep end and eat a bunch of candy or whatever it is, right? Whatever
that's what happens.
Yeah.
Mine is like either candy, which I don't really do too much candy. I think I can really kick that habit.
Yeah.
And I think I kicked it with another habit, which is like the little smoker pens.
Yeah.
Like I started hitting those little pens, and
hey, nicotine is no calories. Though.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I totally kicked the candy habit with that crap, right? But the other one is alcohol, right? Like I mean, right. I do drink here and there,
right?
And you explained to me how it works and how it's extremely difficult to burn off those calories from, is it the fat from alcohol, correct?
Yes, well, it's the sugar, right? It's
the sugar, okay.
It's alcohol can, not be metabolized and burned as a carb source the same way as a regular carb would, right? Because our body processes it differently, breaks down much differently. And so roughly 60% of those calories are really hard to burn off, and they're more likely to store as fat, right? So when someone drinks a lot, it's like, okay, you got a few options here. And, I had this client who, I'll just use it as an example, right? She's like, okay, Friday and Saturday, I really just want to drink, and I want to drink and eat. How can I make that work? Not really willing to give that up. It's a non-negotiable for me. I still want to lose fat, but I still want to kind of have 2 days a week where I can eat whatever kind of I want and drink, right? Okay, so my job as a nutritionist is like, okay, well, off the bat, we can work with that, but here's what's going to happen. Your energy's going to suck. You're going to feel tired. Your workouts are probably going to suck. You're going to be eating pretty minimal food during the week, but as long as you're cool with that, like I can totally make that work, right? And so I took her calorie deficit, and over the week, right, I broke it down over 7 days as opposed to people just think it's 1 day. No, it's like look at your calorie deficit over 7 days as opposed to one. Mm-hmm. And so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, she was eating roughly, it was about 1,000 calories a day. Maybe it was like 1,050 calories a day. But Friday, Saturday, we allotted like 3,400 calories, so Friday night, Saturday night. So she could eat pizza, drink, do all that stuff within those number of calories. And sure enough, she came back the next week and she's like, I'm down 1.5 pounds. Okay, cool.
It worked. Funny?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It works, right? And so the next week we did it, and she's like, okay, cool. I lost another 1.5 pounds. And she's like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I feel like shit.
Nope.
I'm like, okay, so that's like part of my job is like, how can I educate you around what you're doing? I'm not here to take your shit away. People think that I'm going to take all their food away. They're going to be starving and miserable. And that's not that's not my job. It's not. I don't want to take your food, right? Yeah. Like, I want to show you how can you make this work for the rest of your life, right? Because meal plans are great and all to help someone hit a goal or whatever it is, right? But then what? If I haven't taught you the skills of how to track carbs and fats and proteins and how to switch things in and out and make different recipes and given you tons of tools, really by the time we're done, I've just failed you as a coach because you're going to go back to exactly what you did before, which clearly didn't work, right? And that's what I did, right? Like I would sign up with my coach, which was Brad, and I would do super good. I'd be really good on a meal plan. I'd lose 10, 12% body fat, and then I would be done, and I'd gain back 10% body fat over the next couple weeks. You know what I mean? And it's like, shit, well, what do I do? How do I figure this out? And then I'd come back to him with my tail between my legs. Like I'd lose 20 pounds, and then I'd gain back 15, then I'd go back to him, and I'd just this repetitive cycle of like, go try it, then lose the weight, get on my own, and then just blow it, right? And it was like, but it was so strict. It was so much different back then. That was a long time ago. That was 7 years ago, where it was like breakfast was the same every day. All your morning snack and afternoon snack, that was the same. Lunch was the same every single day for a week. You eat the exact same thing every day, and then you get great results. Obviously, if you can stick to that. But then what happens when you're done? I never learned what I needed to continue that when I was finished. So I just go back to what I did before. And I'd fall right on my face. And for 3 years, this was just like the cycle of what I was doing, right? And it's like pretty disheartening when it's like, dude, I'm back again. Hey, can I come see you again? Like, I clearly can't figure this shit out, right? Like, why can't I figure it out? And that's when I started switching things up and like, okay, I got to figure out this like gray area of I can be healthy, but I can switch things up, and I need to have more flexibility, like within the, you know, confines of this meal plan or this, whatever these macros I'm trying to adhere to. I need more flexibility, right? And that's when I started coming up with different options and different things and doing different stuff, you know. A lot of the other coaches where I work, we do things very differently because I have my way of doing things, they have their way of doing things. But through my own, you know, experience of like, you know, I got sober and then I pretty much just turned to food because I had no alcohol or, you know, drugs anymore. And I'm like, well, I'm sober now. What do? I have all these feelings that I haven't dealt with. I'm just going to turn to sugar or fat or whatever, right? And I gained like 40 pounds, right? And so I'm like a year and a half sober and just miserable. I'm like, I'm supposed to be sober and happy and have this awesome life, and I'm totally miserable. I look worse than I ever have, feel worse than I ever have. I need to figure this out. And that's when I hired met Brad, and started going through that. And it's like, okay, a few years later down the road, I'm like, this doesn't work. This is still like all or nothing, right? And that's very much how, you know, addicts or alcoholics are. They're all or nothing. And I'm like, I got to figure out an in-between gray area here that will work for me to do this long term. Yeah. I, you know, figured that out. And
let's talk about it a little bit because when I met you, you were I think 2 years sober.
Like a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah. So just to catch you guys up, and you as well, Alen. So Justin owned. He was a founder and co-founder and owned a store in Beverly Hills Center, right? In Beverly Hills, California. Yeah. And this place was cool, right? Yeah. It was a cool clothing store. They sold nice shoes, and we had
all that stuff. Yeah, and you came out for
so we had a mutual friend who did some shoes with you, and Justin had a 1 year anniversary, right?
Yeah, it was a 1 year anniversary at the Beverly Center.
So I'm like, I want to go out there. I just want to go out there.
Yeah, of course.
So I flew out, and I met Justin. And I saw the store. The store is cool as hell, man. It was awesome. Beverly Hills like mall. Like I went shopping and I checked everything out in the store, and I was like, "This is a good place, right?" And then I come to find out Justin lived in Utah.
Yeah.
And he didn't live in California anymore, right? And so I was like, "Why the hell would this guy be living in Utah? I'd be over there running my store, right?"
Yeah.
So that's how we got acquainted. But Justin was an entrepreneur and he had his own business at the time, and he was working on another business at the time, and. I started cutting his hair back then when I was cutting hair full time. But when I met you, you were getting out of the shitstorm of being an addict, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, what the hell got you there? Because I never really got that from you. I know that you were kind of moving all over the place, and I mean, I knew that you had you grew up where I don't think money was a problem, right? I mean, I feel like you guys were taking care of pretty good.
100%, yeah. I mean, dude, it just came down to like, you know, I got. You know, I smoked weed, whatever, for the first time when I was like, 12 or 13, junior high school, right? And pretty much the first time I ever smoked, I was like, I literally remember saying, I'm going to do whatever I can to feel like this for the rest, like as much as I can. Like that was exactly what I said.
I hear that from a lot of addicts. I hear that from a lot of addicts.
However long I can stretch this out, that's what I'm going to do, right? And that's what I did. I was like, okay, how do I support this? How can I start getting weed? You know, at 13, I don't have a job exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll get some weed fronted to me from my friend Steven Johnson's brother.
Steven Johnson lives at this address. This is his phone number.
Yeah, right.
Call it your boy.
Call him out.
Yeah. And dude, this was in like 8th grade. This was forever ago, right? And it's like he ended up essentially fronting me like a little bit of weed, like an eighth or something. Yeah. And I sold it to my friends at school. And I was able to like sell 2.5 grams for what I got the 3, and I got to keep a gram for free, right? Like that's a drug dealer's dream. Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. This is mine. I can smoke this now, right? So now I'm like, okay, cool. I got this down. I can do it for free, and dude, it just took off from there. It was like it started with weed, and then when I was about 15 or so, one of the kids on the football team gave me a Vicodin and was like, hey, you can take this, and you don't have to smoke or do anything, and it's like it's cool, and they're $2-3, like they're legit. So I took a Vicodin. I was like, oh, dude, this is legit. I don't have to smoke. I don't smell like it. It's a lot easier to do. You know what I mean? It's like I can be more low-key and discreet about it. Great, right? So then I got those. So, okay, cool. I'll start selling those, right? And then it just pretty much progressed from there. And it was like, you know, off to the races, essentially. Yeah. And I would, as, you know, high school, and then I got into high school, and that's pretty much when I just went nuts. That was when I started drinking more, and then I discovered, like, yeah.
Did you still graduate?
Yeah, barely. I pretty much did straight like D's. Like the only reason I graduated is because I had this this IEP is what it was called, individualized education program, and I had this teacher that like really liked me and wanted to help me.
Special ed?
Like pretty much, dude. Like I essentially just was like, I don't care about school.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do whatever I have to do to just pass, and then I'll figure it out then. You know what I mean?
To clarify, have you ever watched Scarface?
Yeah.
What is the number one rule?
What? Don't get high on your own supply.
Don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, but
dude, at this point, it was like I was so young, and I just I was like making money, and it was like, okay, cool, I got money, then I don't have to have a job, and it just took off from there, dude. Then I found ecstasy, and that's like, and Xanax, and that's when things took a real turn for the worst. Was like when I started taking a bunch of Xanax, shit just went down super quick.
Yeah.
Back in rehab, I'm in rehab. Then I came out to Utah for my first time for rehab in 2010, January 2010. Got out, and I was like, okay, I'd gotten enough trouble at this point where I was like, okay, I'm probably a drug addict, but I'm not an alcoholic, right? I was 18 years old at the time. I'm like, I can't be an alcoholic. I'm only 18. It's not like, I'm a drug addict, but like that doesn't apply to me. I'm not like, drinking out of a brown paper bag on the side of the road. Like that was in my head what an alcoholic was, and I'm like, I'm 18. That's not me, right? So what I did was I pretty much drank every single day for the next 6 months until I made this promise to myself I wasn't going to do drugs anymore. I was just going to drink, And then something happened that seemed like a good enough reason to do drugs again. I don't even remember what it was, but started doing the drugs again, and like shit just bad. Got a couple DUIs, got arrested a couple times with some stuff, and it was like shit, dude. And then I remember being in jail that next morning after I'd got my first DUI in January of 2011, and then March 2nd I got my second DUI 2 months later, and I had some oxys and stuff on me that I also got in trouble with. So I'm sitting in jail. This was like 6 hours after my DUI. I'd gotten this fight with this girl at my house, and I called the cops on her because she was like wouldn't leave my house. Cops came over to get her out of my house, and then all my drugs are on my counter, so they arrested me.
Oh shit!
Yeah. And so here I go back to jail 6 hours after I just got out from my second DUI. And I had been on one, man. I was like drinking every day at that point. And anyways, I woke up I went to jail, and there's this guy on the top bunk, and I was like, hey man, how'd you get here? And I remember he was like, dude, I was running and I jumped up this fence and I woke up here. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, you're an idiot. That's what I said. Mm-hmm. Right. Meanwhile, I'm just pretty much called the cops myself. Just got my second DUI like 6 hours before that. So anyways, I pass out, I wake up in the morning, and he was gone, and I was there by myself. And the dude just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, fuck. And it hit me. It was like, dude, you weren't supposed to do drugs. Like you were just supposed to drink. This was you controlling it the best you ever have. And look where you're at, like more just like screwed than you've ever been. And that morning I made myself promise I was going to do whatever I have to do to never feel this way again. Whatever it takes, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Right? Got on a plane, went to rehab, came to Utah again, which was March 4th. I got arrested March 2nd, but I don't even count my sobriety date till March 4th because the whole day of the 3rd I was in jail. I was so fucked up from the 2 days before. Like I wasn't even counted sober. Yeah, I was still like not sober.
Yeah.
And dude, so I got on a plane, came to Utah, went to detox, went to rehab, did the whole thing, and did everything they told me to do. I was, instead of fighting it like I had in the past, I was like, okay, cool, go do this. I was like, all right, cool, what do I got to do? Got out of rehab, went to a sober living house, did an intensive outpatient program 5 days a week for 3-4 months. Graduated from that, and then went to court, and I was getting drug tested every day at my sober living house, and then twice a week from my intensive outpatient, taking 9 drug tests every 7 days, breathalyzing every single day, like doing everything I had to do, going to 3 or 4 AA meetings a day, getting my card signed, and then I showed up to court, when I was about like 6 months out of treatment, and I had all these letters of recommendation from like my therapist and my all the places I'd been through, and they were like. And I just remember I went up to the judge and I was like, yeah, man, like I'm really trying my hardest to change this. Just give me a chance. Mm-hmm. And he was like, okay, man, I'm going to give you a 3-year suspended sentence. If you get so much as a dirty test for marijuana, I don't care what it is, it's all going to get dropped right on your head. And I was like, okay, cool, I can deal with that, right? And so I got that, stayed sober, and I haven't really looked back since.
Yeah. I see the similarity with people who are addicted to drugs and narcotics.
Yeah.
With food.
It's the same thing, man.
It is the same thing.
Like socially acceptable, right? So it's like And people, I don't think, understand how, really like devastating a food addiction is, because, imagine me, I'm an alcoholic, right, and a drug addict, and I don't need to drink alcohol to survive, right? But imagine if I was, and I did, and someone said, okay, Justin or Fernando, I know you're a cocaine addict, but so here's what I need you to do. Every single day, I need you to do 6 lines of cocaine a day, and 1 in the morning, afternoon, 1 at lunch, 1 in the afternoon snack, 1 at dinner time, and then 1 before you go to bed. I only want you to do a line. I don't want you to do 2, but I don't want you to do a half. I want you to do 1 full one and only 1, right? And that's what you got to do. Like, how the hell would you do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine, like, when people ask, like, what's it like to, like, be addicted, like, the best way I could explain it is, like, imagine, like, there's this, this table of food, right? And, like, you're starving. And there's this whole table of all your favorite foods right on the table, right? And, like, you're starving. You haven't eaten in weeks. And your whole entire family is just sitting around the table, and they're crying, and they're just telling you, please don't eat the food. Like, that's how it feels when you're, like, addicted, like, in the thick of, an addiction or whatever, alcoholism, right? Like, that's what it feels like, right? And so imagine, your vice is food. And it's like, okay, friend, only this much, not this much. You can have this much, but you can't have this. Like, I don't need to drink 6 drinks a day to be healthy and feel good, right? But the person with the food addiction does. And it's like, how does that person do this and be healthy and feel good when, like, the food is that person's drug? You know what I mean? And people don't really, it's socially acceptable for people to overeat, but it's not socially acceptable for me to snort Oxycontin all the time, right? Like, we draw a line somewhere, right? Yeah. But it's like, we don't give that person with the food addiction or that's 30 pounds overweight the same benefit of the doubt. We're like, oh, well, that person's fat and they don't have any discipline or they have no self-control. When in reality, we don't have any idea what's going on in their life or, like, why or what their relationship with food looks like or what that even is, dude. And it's like, maybe that's their only way to cope with whatever it is they're going through, right? And, like, that's how they handle things is when they're happy, they eat food. When they're sad, they eat food. When they're, that's what we do. We celebrate with food when we're happy, when we're sad, when we're with people, when we're not. We're always using food, right? Like, and that person that has a problem with it, it's like, okay, what do they do? Like, how do you help that person? And it's like, that's some of the hardest clients to work with, right? Because it's like, okay, well, look, we got to kind of look at, like, your relationship with food as a whole. And, like, it's a lot further than just nutrition and the mindset piece that we kind of talked about in the beginning. It's like, how come when you're sad you eat? How come when you're stressed you eat? Well, I mean, it makes sense why when someone's stressed they eat, right? So our stress hormone, which is cortisol, gets released. Now, the opposite hormone or the antagonist hormone of cortisol is insulin, right? And so what triggers insulin is carbohydrates. So we eat carbs, our body sends out some insulin to shuttle those carbs wherever they need to go in the body, right? Now, the thing is, insulin turns off cortisol, right? To really, really simplify it and break it down. So when you're super stressed and, it's been a long day, you haven't eaten all day, and then you eat a bunch of candy, boom, you can fall right asleep. Well, it makes sense as to why we crave these sugars and candy and alcohol when we're really stressed, because it actually turns off that stress hormone, like from a physiological standpoint. That's how it works in our body. So it makes sense why people crave sugar. Absolutely. Because what triggers, the most amount of insulin? Well, it's sugar. Yeah. It's alcohol. There's nothing higher than the glycemic index when it comes to just pure, what can spike your blood sugar the highest? Sugar, alcohol, high fructose corn syrup, gummy worms, whatever it is, right? So we get super stressed and we crave these things and we wonder why we crave them. Well, it makes perfect sense. But the flip side of that is you could also eat, like, a healthy carb with a protein and it'll do the same thing. You don't have to go to the unhealthy option to get the same result, right? It's like, do it this way as opposed to this way. And that's what a lot of it is like, my job is a lot of showing people, like, here's all the options you can do. What do you want to do, right? Because as soon as I tell you you can or you can't do this, I lose. As soon as I say, Fernando, you can't have a Snickers. Well, you're going to say, I don't even like Snickers, but I'm going to eat 2 because you just told me I can't have any.
Yep, that's how it works.
So instead of me saying you can't have this, it's like, here's what you can have. Here's all the stuff you can have. You tell me what you like. I'll help you with the amounts of how much you should have and have it. Go ahead. But I don't have to say no because I'm letting you pick. You're the one picking, not me. I'm never the one saying you have to eat this, or this, or you can't have this, or this. Because as soon as I do that, I lose.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you do that. Yeah. You give me multiple different options to pick from.
Yeah.
And then we put it together. Like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, et cetera. Yeah. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, et cetera, for a snack.
Yeah.
And you can play around with it.
Exactly, because that's real life, right? Like, who wants to eat the same thing every day? I know I don't. And I know when I did, I failed miserably, right? So I don't want to give that to someone because, hey, let me just set you up to fail. That's not my job. My job is to help them be successful and to like really learn how to eat healthy for the rest of your life. This is not a crash diet. This is not like, you know, a quick fix or a keto diet or whatever it is, the fads that people go through.
You know what? That's how I feel too. Because even right now, like, and we talk about this every time I go in there, and I'll go weigh in, and I'm like, okay, I lost some, or maybe I gained a couple, or maybe I'm the same as last week, or whatever it is. Like right now, I think compared to when I first started I know what to do now. Like it's been long enough with you where I know. But there's another thing that comes with the weekly visits.
Well, it's the accountability.
It's the accountability. And that's super important because and I'm not going to say, oh, I'm afraid to stop going to you because I feel like maybe I'll balloon up or whatever. Right. But I kind of do feel like that because I honestly,
it's a constant reminder.
It's a reminder. Oh shit, I got to see Justin this week. Oh shit, I got to see Justin this week. Right. So that really helps. And for me to be paying what I pay for that accountability is totally worth it. I'm telling you,
well, it's like
it really is.
I tell people all the time, like when people pay, they pay attention. It's just a fact, right? Like I've had clients where someone else is paying for the program for them, and they just don't really care as much because they're not invested. They don't have anything to lose if they do, right? Like the people that are the most successful are the ones that care, right? Because they're invested. They're like, oh shit, you know, they know they have a weigh-in no matter what. Like even if they cancel on me last minute, I'm gonna text them and be like, hey, what's your weight? Right? Or like they know like they're gonna get their body fat tested. You can tell me till you're blue in the face how awesome your week was, but when you jump on the scale and I test your body fat, like it's not my opinion. It's not an opinion again. It's like here's what your body fat is. Yeah. I tested it 3 times. Why is it up 1%? Yep. Clearly something's not adding up. So what's really going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah. People try to hide stuff all the time, huh?
But the other thing is I'm not trying to catch you. I'm not trying to catch you in something, right? Like I'm trying to help you kind of navigate through life and the ups and the downs and the busy times. Yeah. And you know, it's really easy to be compliant on a plan when shit's great, right? Like when there's no stress and it's easy, it's like you don't really need me then, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, well, what do you do during a pandemic when you're at home and you can't go to the gym and all your food that you keep for your kids is 10 feet away from you at all times and your office is now your living room? Like, how do you still be successful and lose when that's your scenario now? What do you do, right? Because that's where a lot of people are at. And it's like, oh, shit, I've gained 10 pounds since this pandemic or 20 or 30 or whatever pounds. What do I do? Well, if we don't have a plan for that, it's not really going to work. There has to be a scenario where you're successful. And that's like what my job is, to help you find that and figure out whatever that looks like for you and how you can keep going despite the outside and external factors that are always going to be there, right? Like you're never just going to not be stressed. Yeah. That's a thing. It's just a myth. Like there's always going to be some kind of new stress, whether it's work or it's family or it's whatever. Like, I don't care what it is. Like there's never going to be a time in your life where you're just like, you know what, there's just no stress and things are just great. You know, like there's always going to be something. And so, well, how do we prepare for that? Yeah. Because if we don't, we lose.
Yeah. So let's go down that avenue a little bit because, like I said earlier, you know, when we talk about entrepreneurs and being self-employed, there is a level of stress there. And again, I've been self-employed pretty much my whole life. Yeah. You know, and so I'm used to it, right? I don't really know another way. And when I feel like I'm not being challenged, I come up with another way to challenge myself, and that comes with another form of stress. So when it comes to people who are self-employed, people who they carry this amount of stress, I mean, do you work with a lot of clients who are entrepreneurs, who are self-employed, that come to you with crazy schedules, that we're working 18 hours a day? I mean,
whether it's a flight attendant or a shift worker who is literally awake at nighttime half the week, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. Like there's a plan for everyone, but that's why everything we do is individualized. There's no really one size fits all meal plan that's like, okay, I'm going to just copy and paste this one for you, Fernando. It's like, no. That's how we do it with every client. It's like, okay, what time do you get up in the morning? How much time do you have? Here's a quick option. Here's another fast option. Here's something for the weekends. Here's something if you have a little more time. Here's 4 different options. Pick whichever one works on a given day, right? And so by doing that and going through your whole day and seeing where you're at and like, hey, Fernando, where are you at 10:30? Well, if you're driving and, you know, and I have you down for whatever, some sort of something you need a microwave for, it's probably not going to work. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, here's another option. Here's a fast option for you. Here's this option. Here's another one, right? So it's like, the hope is I give you enough things that work that no matter what the day throws at you, we have an option that works for every scenario. And based off of what your day looks like, you'll just assess that and then grab this snack over this snack or this meal over this meal. And, you know what I mean, make it work, because that's how it has to work. No 2 days are really the same generally.
You know what he recommended to me about maybe 2 months ago, and we finally got it, was the air fryer. Yeah. Dude, that air fryer is money.
It's a game changer.
Money.
It's $50, dude.
My kids love those pot stickers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I air fry pot stickers?
You can air fry everything.
I air fried them. Wow, bro, these things were gold, bro. They were money. My kids ate all of them, right?
I bet.
But I'm like, oh my gosh, and my wife's been buying a lot of the sweet potato fries and sweet potato like tater tots.
Yep.
We air fry those, like, dude, and it's so fast. 20 minutes is done. 15 minutes is done. And it's really just revolutionized the way we cook, like around the house.
It makes it a lot easier too.
Well, and it also confines your mess to this one little area, right? So it's not like you're cleaning 7 or 8 pans or whatever and doing all these dishes. It's like it's all confined to one area. Which, if you have a lot of kids and you're a busy parent, you don't want to be spending all this time cleaning the house and in the kitchen and doing all these dishes. So you can just make it a little bit easier and like it tastes really good too. You're not adding any extra calories. It's a great option.
Yeah, and we do that too, and it's hard when you have kids because I mean, one wants to eat now. 30 minutes later, you're done. The other one wants to eat, and then 30 minutes is like, dude, it's like hours and hours in the kitchen with the kids. But I'm used to that, and I'm loving is that the foods that we have been eating, right? The options. It's been a really easy transition for my kids. They're so young. Like we switched from peanut butter and jelly to peanut butter and sugar-free jelly, right? And that little like removing the high fructose corn syrup really helped out a lot, right?
Well, and your kids are going to feel better.
Yeah.
And they're going to focus better, and they're going to have more energy, and they're going to be more consistent, and they're just going to overall, feel better. And the thing I tell a lot of clients that have kids, it's like, how your child's health is like a direct result of you, right? Your kids are not leaving and going to McDonald's and ordering fast food and eating unhealthy, right? They just eat what you give them and what you allow them to have. That's essentially what they eat, right? Like they don't really get a say in much. They're not driving to Burger King because they're so young, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're the one in control here. Like it's on you to like make sure they're healthy for now, right? Because they don't really have an option to do anything different. So it's the parent's job to like, okay, I want my kids to be healthy. I'm going to give them the more nutritious options. I'm not going to have them do regular soda anymore. We're going to switch to whatever it is, right? Like there's plenty of alternatives that work that you can swap things out that are really – your kids don't even know half the time.
Yeah. I want to talk about something, and you might have some expertise on this, but let's find out. Okay. Yeah. I've been doing the TRT. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah. So I've been doing that a little bit, right? And my doctor, and this guy's so funny because I threw it in there. I'm like, hey, by the way, let me get some not Viagra but Cialis.
Yeah.
And he's all, okay, give me a bottle, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, so I get the Cialis, right? And I'm totally being transparent right now.
Yeah.
And again, a question maybe you know, maybe you don't know. If you're constantly like banging these things out, like eating these things, can it fuck with your libido? Is there foods that can help support the libido? Are there things that you can do naturally to help stimulate the libido?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing obviously you can do is lose fat, right?
Yeah.
Like the higher fat. So here's how fat cells work, right? Every fat
Let's
cell.
go to that. This is going to be good because I know a lot of guys my age.
Yeah.
Like Matt, our last guest, we were talking about it with him. He's like, dude, well, what can I do to stimulate my libido?
Right.
I'm just being real, right?
Well, and that's a good question, right? And it's like kind of a taboo subject for a lot of people that they don't want to talk about and they don't want to bring up. But typically when someone's overweight, their libido's down, their sex drive is down, their energy's down. It's pretty much across the board, right? It's kind of this blanket statement of everything feels less than or lower than. Your energy, all that stuff is down regulated, right? Usually testosterone is down as well. And the reason for that is all your fat cells also have estrogen receptors on them, meaning you're more likely to have higher estrogen when you have higher body fat because your body physically has more estrogen receptors than someone that has lower body fat, okay? So the first thing that happens is when you're overweight, typically that's going to lower your testosterone. Now, on top of that, for males, your testosterone can lower up to 20% just from not sleeping properly, okay? So if we just take, let's say you were at a 500 and you took 20%, so 100 points off your testosterone just because you don't sleep, right? Then after men turn 26, their testosterone naturally decreases. So you got that working against you too. Then you work a very high stress job and you have a high stress life, right? Being an entrepreneur, you're working long hours, your sleep is not really a priority, and you're working because that's what you're doing to support your family, right? That's also going to lower your testosterone. So now you have 3 factors working against you that have nothing to do with a single piece of food you've eaten before we even get there, right?
Yeah.
So out the gate, you got one arm and one leg tied behind your back at this point. You're hopping along, right? Now you throw in these unhealthy foods like candy and sugar and all the stuff with high sugar. That's going to lower your testosterone even more because these foods are not nourishing your body and promoting, healthy energy levels and a good energy balance throughout the day. They're essentially going to make you peak really high and crash, right?
Yeah.
And on those crashes, everything is going to go down with those as well.
That's where I was too when I started.
Right.
That's where a lot of the guys are when they start, right? They have no idea.
Most guys, yeah. And I tell people this all the time. Like when I ask someone, like, how do you feel? Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, do you have energy throughout the day? Do you feel tired? Like a good indication of low testosterone. If you wake up in the morning and you could go back to sleep and you've had a full night's rest, like chances are there's something going on. People just associate this idea of me getting older, I'm going to feel shittier. That is not the case, right? Yeah. There's nowhere in the, in science does it say the older you get, the more like you're going to feel shittier as you get older. That's a direct result of what you're eating and your sleeping habits and your eating habits and how you manage stress and how you're taking care of yourself, right? So all those factors are working against you, and it's no wonder why people feel like shit and have low testosterone. I mean, 70 years ago, the average testosterone level was at 1,200. Now it's 300, right?
Yeah.
All these things are working against us, like blue lights. These blue lights in this room. These blue lights lower your body's hormones. They tell you they tell your body, don't go to sleep, don't get tired, don't produce melatonin to wind down like your body normally would when we were living by candlelight and all that sort of stuff, right? So all these processed foods, all of these, all this added stress just from our lifestyle that we live now are working against our hormones, right? The average range for testosterone now is about 300, right?
Yeah, mine was less than that. Remember that?
And yours was
like,
yours was
low
like
twos.
Low twos, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that is not normal. That's largely why. One, you feel like shit, and two, you're having a really hard time losing fat. So, your testosterone is directly correlated to how much fat you can lose, how much muscle you can build, how effectively you recover, and how much energy you have throughout the day. So if that's low...
And my sleep was all jacked up,
too.
It was. Yeah.
Well, everybody is the same, right? Everyone thinks they're so uniquely different. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, right? Like, it's the same for everybody, right? Yeah. And as soon as you correct that and you fix those issues, everything, like... up in the same way things downward spiral, it spirals upward, right? You have more energy, you feel better, you can burn more fat. Now you can actually go to the gym because you have energy and you're eating better and now you're getting better results. It's like all these good things happen just because we looked into that. Mm-hmm. And like, hormones are a big part of what I do as well because, it's like fighting it. There's no food I can give you to increase your testosterone, right? Yeah. Like there's not one that exists, right? So, if someone has a testosterone deficiency, I can't raise that just by giving you a certain food. So it's almost like pushing a rock up a hill, right? At some point, it's going to roll back down and we're going to get run over. You know what I mean? So by doing some blood work and looking into things like I had you do, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, shit, your testosterone's low. Let's get that up. All of a sudden, your testosterone's up. Well, guess what? Guess who's down almost 40 pounds now and feels good and has energy and has all these good things because we decided to look into that, right? It's a lot deeper than food. People just think it's like, oh, you just... Right, meal plans.
Food or supplements.
Yeah, it's
take some horny goat weed.
Well, and it's like, in how many supplements have I told you to get from the store? 0.
Yeah, none.
Right?
Yeah, no, I get everything from food.
Exactly, because that's exactly right. You're getting everything you need from food, and then your hormones you're supplementing with what you need, and look at the results you've got. Right? Yeah. Like I don't have to sell you on those; they speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's but people don't talk about that stuff. They don't want to talk about, oh well, my T levels are low. I feel tired. I don't have a sex drive. All these things. It's nothing to be embarrassed of. It's like, that's a problem. Let's fix it, right? Yeah. You're not getting older and should feel like shit. That's not how it goes.
Yeah, I was eating those things like left and right, man. Yeah. And one of the reasons why is because I heard a lot of people that actually work out at the gym and they'll use Cialis or Viagra or whatever it is.
Cialis works a little different than Viagra, but the science behind that, Cialis is a vasodilator. So, in layman's terms, what it does is it unrestricts blood flow to wherever the blood is going, right? So, and if you're training arms at the gym and the blood's going to the biceps, the Cialis will help get more blood to the bicep, right? Or it will to the quad or whatever you're training, right? So that's why a lot of bodybuilders use something like that pre-workout is because that's exactly what it does. Now, in most cases, people using it for like erectile dysfunction or whatever, that's exactly what it's going to do as well, right? But being that it has a 72-hour half-life, that will work for your benefit if you are training as well. But people just don't. Because again, it's this taboo subject of like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, you can either not address it and pretend it's not happening, or you can just find a solution for it and then not have to deal with it anymore. Yep. It's like, what's worse, right? Just being maybe a slightly embarrassed for a minute, or
how many of your clients come to you, middle-aged men, right? Maybe less than middle-aged men. I like to think I'm less than middle-aged.
Yeah.
Come to you and you recommend them to get blood work done, and then you come to find out that their testosterone is extremely low. Is it a good majority of the people that do it?
It's probably honestly 70%. I mean, really though, it's like, but usually it's like there's signs that I can see that lead to that, right? Like if I put someone on a calorie deficit and give them all, and, break their meals down, give them meals and snacks. They stick to it. They feel really good. And, they after a month's over, it's been a month and they've been on their plan, sticking to everything, and they're only down a pound or two. There's signs that I can kind of correlate to like a low testosterone, or like I'll check in with them and, check in on their biofeedback of like, how's your energy? How's your workouts? How is your recovery? And based off of where those things are at, I can kind of, use like deductive reasoning and say, okay, hey, let's get some blood work done. I think there's something else going on here. And I've seen it enough times now that I know what to look for, where it's like, okay, look, these are all the signs of low testosterone. Like, let's get some blood work done. Let's kind of dive into this a little bit deeper. It's not necessarily a food issue or a compliance issue. It's more of a hormonal issue. So let's look into this and kind of address this. Yeah. Because that seems like there's probably something going on here.
Yeah. Alen, you got your blood work done, correct?
I did.
So where did your testosterone level come in at? Was it lower than normal?
Mine wasn't too bad, actually. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I think yours was about a 500.
Yeah, for me, it was all about the thyroid.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, something people don't look at, right? Thyroid. It's like that regulates weight loss, right? So if your thyroid's down, you have low T3, no food I can give you to increase your T3, right? If your thyroid stimulating hormone's low, no food I can give you to increase your thyroid stimulating hormone, right? Like, these are factors into why people can't lose weight as well. It's not the keto diet that's not working. It's not the whatever diet that's not working. That's probably not helping, but it's more than likely this is the cause of your issues, right? Yeah. It's like, food can cure, in my opinion, like 90 to 95% of most of the medical issues that people have. Like, I've had clients come in with type 2 diabetes on metformin, on, whatever it is, these medications to help with blood sugar or insulin sensitivity. And after they lose 30 or 40 pounds, they don't need any of that stuff anymore, right? I'm not saying that's like a blanket statement that that's going to happen to everybody, but like, I've had clients come in with fatty liver and type, really high A1C, borderline type 2 diabetic, and after they lost some weight and ate better, all that stuff seems to go away. Wow. The problem is you go into a doctor and they say, here's your symptoms. You say, here's my symptoms, doctor. Here's what I have. They say, okay, Fernando, your A1C is at a 6. You're pre-diabetic. I'm going to give you this metformin, which is an insulin sensitivity regulator that's going to help your body secrete better amounts of insulin and help you regulate that process. They don't say, hey, how's your diet? Do you eat protein and carbs balanced together, or do you just eat really heavy carbs with minimal protein? Because that could be a really big issue in terms of why your insulin sensitivity is out of whack.
Why do you think that doesn't happen? Why do you think they're not properly educated on nutrition? Is that?
Yeah, and I think the doctor doesn't really, they don't have a ton of time with their patients, right, when they're meeting with them, and they're just trying to give them the best medication to fix the causes as opposed to the issues, right? When someone comes to me and I say, okay, here's what the medications I'm taking. Well, I say, okay, well, let's look at what we can fix and see if we can get those lowered or we can get off some of those in the future. That's a goal we generally have together, right? And so by eating better, a lot of times that stuff goes away, right? Because if it's an insulin sensitivity issue, that comes from food, right? Wow. And type 2 diabetes is reversible, so you can cure that essentially by eating better and losing weight and, training your body to use insulin better by breaking up your meals and eating balanced meals throughout the day and eating better, right? And by doing that, all of a sudden, 6 months down the road, wow, look at that. Your body's corrected itself and it doesn't need those anymore. And you don't have those symptoms, so the doctor doesn't have to prescribe you that for the symptoms because we address the cause of the symptoms.
Yeah, so let's talk about
which is before anything, which is so interesting because even me as well. I put myself in those shoes because I was allergic to everything.
Right.
And whenever I would go to the doctor, I was like, hey doc, like I feel like shit. I'm
right.
bloated. Like I have this pain, and they would just give you medication,
right.
For acid, for this, for that.
Here's this for acid reflux. Here's this for heartburn. It's all this stuff.
And it's literally like come in, come out. And I hear that a lot with people as well, with anything, whether you're on drugs, whether you're not. Like they want you to just keep coming back, just kind of give you a little bit. Here you go. And go about your way. But they don't want to actually get to the actual root of the problem.
Right.
Like for me personally, it happened to be that I needed to find out exactly what I was allergic to. I didn't come to find out until I ended up in the emergency room until eventually it's like, hey, by the way, you can't have any of these foods right here.
Right.
But the doctors never mentioned that. They're so quick to go, hey, here's this. You feel like shit. Here you go.
Yep. And then on to the next one, right?
On to the next one. It's like clockwork.
Right. And it's not necessarily the doctor's fault, but it's like given what their scope of practice is, that's what their job is. Okay, I have a limited time. What medication best fits these symptoms? You know what I mean? I'm not here to hate on doctors or any of that sort of stuff at all. It's more so just that's not really within their scope of practice to really like dive into someone's diet or nutrition. That doctors, only train on nutrition for like 2 weeks. I think it is. My uncle said, who's a doctor, right? During his whole residency, it was 2 weeks of that, right?
Wow.
Out of however many years, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not, you know, the number one solution when the truth is it's a lot of what's causing the issues, right? Like how do arteries get clogged that lead to a stroke, right? Like, well, years and years and years of unhealthy eating and not regulating those and checking those things, right? Like that's how it happens, right? Like blood pressure is a really, really good indicator of like health issues someone's going to have later on in life. Like, what does your blood pressure look like? Do you ever check that? You know, because that can indicate a lot of things. You can get a lot of information from that stuff, but you know, most people don't really look because it's almost like ignorance is bliss. If it doesn't feel bad, it must not be bad. Yeah. Right. But like when you do blood work and you are forced to kind of see the whole picture, and when I say blood work, it's like full liver panel, comprehensive metabolic panel, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, thyroid panel, liver enzymes, all the full gambit of everything. So we know, okay, look, let's get a full snapshot of everything that's going on, and then let's make a plan to improve these areas and help fix these things. Because a lot of things can be fixed relatively quickly. You'd be surprised how fast you can correct, you know, unhealthy blood work or, you know, blood work areas that have red flags. It's like once we know what we're looking at, it's very easy to fix those things, but it's impossible to know until you find out, right? Like I can't look at someone and say, oh, God, your HDL and LDL are low and high. Like, you know, your good cholesterol is low and your bad cholesterol is high. Let me help you with your fats that you're eating so we can help get those lowered, right? It's like until I have that data and I can see it, I can't really help make the best plan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what if somebody were to come to you and say this, and I'm going to give you my routine 7 years ago, okay? Yeah. Let's say, okay, I'm sleeping about 4 hours to 5 hours if I'm lucky every day. Okay, that's one. I don't have a lot of time to eat, or I'm not willing to make the time to eat, okay, because I'm working 10 different positions in my company. And I'm always on my feet all day long, so I know I'm burning a lot of calories, right? Yeah. So when I do try to get food in, it's probably some fast food or something that I can grab quickly. And I don't have a ton of money to spend on it. What would you recommend? Is there a diet where you could have one great meal, 2,000 calorie meal, 1,500 calorie meal, and then you can go about your day? Is that possible for somebody? I mean, have you ever written something like that? Isn't that something, what is it called, intermittent fasting, where people just like bang out 1 or 2 massive meals a day and they're done? Have you seen success with that?
Yes and no. And like, you know, okay, so I have a client who's got really, really bad GI issues, and she really has really bad heartburn. Like, and it's just, you know what I mean? She, pretty much a lot of that is like genetics. She was born that way. And so, you know, for her, we have her fast actually daily, right? So we actually have like, you know, she essentially eats 4 meals over a 10-hour window, right? And she spaces those out so we can keep her blood sugar stable. But I have her fast in the morning. I don't have her eat her first meal till noon, so her inflammation can come down and she can actually like digest and absorb nutrients better, right? Because the higher inflammation you have, the worse you absorb nutrients, the worse your body does everything that we're trying to do, right? Now, my problem with intermittent fasting is this, and it's not to hate on people that do that. If you do that and it works for you, that's fantastic. But the large majority, you know, if you said I'm going to fast intermittently, let's look at what that would mean, right? That would mean once a week, maybe you did a 24-hour fast or something. That would be intermittent. That would be fasting in an intermittent period, right? Now, if you just said I'm going to only eat over 8-hour period, every 24 hours I'm going to eat for 8, right? That was what I would really refer to as time-restricted eating, okay? So it's not that there's some magic in eating every 2 hours for 8 hours, eating 4 meals. Let's say you're eating 2,000 calories. You divide that over 4 or 500 calorie meals every 2 hours, right? There's no magic in that. What happens is by going from eating 16 hours a day to 8 hours a day, you've now created more of a calorie deficit because you have less time to eat, right? So all that's happened is you've created a calorie deficit within this window that you've set for yourself, and that is why more than likely you're probably losing fat, right? Now, there's no magic behind that. There's no magical thing that happens, right? Sure, it's really good for, you know, digestion issues. If you have any, sure, fasting like that can be really beneficial for some people. But, you know, don't be mistaken. There's no, like, magic thing that happens when you were to do that, right? Now, the other issue that people run into is, you know, nutrient absorption is a thing, right? So just because I sit here and right now I eat 100 grams of protein doesn't mean my body can absorb 100 grams of protein just because I ate it right now. So what happens is my body will probably cap out at 50 or 60, maybe whatever grams. The rest of it, my kidney's going to filter out and I'm going to either pee it out or sweat it out, right? So I've not now utilized the full 100 grams of protein, even though I ate 100 grams. So when someone's eating every 2 hours on the heels of all of their meals, let's say they're eating 400 grams of protein for the day, right? You can't physically absorb all of those nutrients as well.
In that short time.
Because your body doesn't have enough time to utilize those fully before it's ready for more of them. Right?
That makes sense.
And so that's where you'll run into some issues potentially if that is, how you choose to eat in that, time restricted eating window, right? And it gets really worse when it gets to really small windows. I've heard of some people they fast for 20 hours and eat for 4. And it's like, look, you can eat all your calories for one day in one meal. That's fine. But if you came to me and said, how am I going to feel the best, perform the best, and kind of have the most energy, that is definitely not the way I would recommend you to go, right? Does that mean it's not going to work for some people? Absolutely not. But if you said, what's the most effective way to do this? I would definitely not set you up on that type of a program because, in my experience, it's not been the best way to get someone the same results, right?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? But it's like, so to answer that question for that 7 years ago, right? I would have to help you come up with some really easy options, right? Like grab and go stuff, Premier protein shakes. I'd have you do lots of tuna, like really inexpensive protein options. Cause I could have you buy a 20-pound bag of rice at Costco for $25, right? And then I could have you get canned tuna for your protein. And then depending on your level of dedication, we can make that work. No problem. Right. Yeah. It's more so like, what are you willing to do to be successful? Right. And that's really the question I pose to my clients. It's like, well, what's your why behind this? Because if it's just to look good, it's not really going to cut it, man. Because when shit gets tough and when it gets stressful and shit hits the fan, so to speak, that's not going to be enough of a reason to keep going forward. So you got to figure out, why are you doing this? What is the why behind you coming here and sitting in front of me? Is it, you got to get deeper than that, right? Like really dig deep and think, like, why are you really doing this?
Yeah.
Is it to set a good example for your kids so you can be around and have energy to play with your kids when you're 40? Like what is it, right? Because once I can target that, figure out why, then usually I can make a lot of progress and we can make some serious headway into getting someone, some success.
Yeah. I went to you feeling like shit. I was at 270, which wasn't even my heaviest. I got a 300 one time.
Yeah.
But 270, and I mean that inflammation. When we talked about that, I never really thought of that. Right.
Yeah.
And I was drinking, right?
Yeah.
And I did try to lose some weight on my own, but then when you talked about testosterone, and I was like, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. Like as an entrepreneur, we have higher levels of stress, and it's probably fucking with our testosterone.
I even sat there and I said, like, dude, you have low testosterone.
Yeah.
I don't need a test to know this, dude. Like, I guarantee you have low testosterone.
And it was
Go get it checked.
It was so low, and it made so much sense. And as soon as I got on, like it was like a week after, we were doing the flip at that time, and when I started taking it, like my energy levels went up. I
told you. I said, this is going to change your life. Like this is no bullshit. Like this is going to change your life. You are going to feel like a totally brand new person just from this. And it's no joke. You know what I mean? People just forget. Like the thing with testosterone that's so deceptive is it doesn't just all of a sudden crash. You don't go from 500, like Alen was at, all the way to a 200 where you were at overnight, right? Maybe every few weeks or months or years, you're losing 4, 5, 6 points here, and then you're not sleeping well, so that lowers it. And it's like it slowly bleeds down over the course of years, maybe, and all of a sudden you get it checked, and it's like, holy shit, it's at a 200. But when I ask someone, I'm like, hey, do you feel okay? They're like, I feel fine, because they didn't drop from 500 to 200. That's just normal to them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's normal. This is how I feel. This is normal. I feel fine. That's what everyone says. I feel fine, right? But once I get them on whatever the hormone replacement therapy needed is, and they feel optimal, like, and I'm not talking like we get them to 300, we get them to the high end of the range. If the range for men is, 300 to, 1,000, and we get them to 800 or 900, when they get to 800 or 900, they're like, holy shit, I didn't realize how shitty I felt back then, because now I feel so much better. And I didn't even realize that I could feel this good.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I told you.
Right.
I was like, dude, I forgot how I felt. This is how I felt when I was like 21.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I literally feel that good. I'm sleeping awesome. I'm working. My brain, I feel like, is functioning a lot better.
Right.
I'm better at solving problems. I can think quickly on my feet.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying right there, you're so much more clear.
Yeah.
You're clear. You're more efficient. You're more on top of things. You have more energy.
Of course.
Your energy you give off as well. Like you're in a better mood. The list goes on.
100%. I mean, side effects: low testosterone, depression, anxiety, low sex drive, hard to lose fat, right? Like it's all of these things that are really, really bad, right? Like if you saw the side effects of it on a prescription bottle, you'd be like, I'm not taking that. Like, this is all the shit that can happen. Like I don't want that, right? But because it's natural and it happens naturally, we're okay with it because we don't really realize it's happening. And the other thing is, like, you don't have to take testosterone. There's like clomiphene, there's other medications you can take to raise your testosterone without doing testosterone. You know, for those of you guys listening, you know, there's other ways to do it. You don't have to do testosterone. Let's be clear on that. There's other ways you can get these things higher naturally, so you don't have to, if you're worried about fertility or any of these other things, there is ways to do that as well, right? There's not just like, okay, you have to just take testosterone. I think everybody should take testosterone. It's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is I think everybody should have optimal testosterone levels.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the reason why people aren't able to lose fat is because they just don't have that. Right. And it's just working against you, and everything you do is, you know, you're getting 25% of the results from the same amount of work. And it's like, now that your testosterone's high, it's not like I have you doing any more work. It's not like you're working harder now than you were at the beginning. Right. It's the same amount of work. Nothing changed there, but all of a sudden your results are just through the roof.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you how my girl feels when I'm taking testosterone.
Oh my God.
I had to figure out where to put that sound effect in.
Yep.
Oh my God.
No, dude, I'm telling you, it completely changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I thought that I was like, oh well, this is, I guess,
This is how I age.
This is how I'm gonna feel. Yeah, as I get older, I'm just gonna keep continually going down, right? But I do think, number one, having a nutritionist is extremely important in life.
Yeah.
Number two, if you're an entrepreneur and you are having a hard time figuring out what foods to eat because you're so busy doing your own thing and you don't have time to make your foods, and you know they should meet or talk to somebody like you to educate them on what's going to be best for them to continue moving forward in their business, because it really helped our business. I mean, I'm telling you right now, like my confidence level shot to the roof. I don't think I'd be doing a podcast right now if I didn't feel as good as I did. The vlogs and everything else that you and I are doing, I don't think I'd be wanting to do that.
Probably
not. If I didn't feel this good, and I attribute that back down to the nutrition and the coaching that you've helped me with. So, yeah.
Well, it's crazy. It's like I felt the same way, right? So like when I went through this process myself when I was working with Brad and I got all this stuff, like all my ducks in a row, so to speak, that was kind of where I was like, dude, I got to help other people do this. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I started. Like I got a coach, and then Brad was like, hey, you should do this. Like, you're really good at it. You know, I've been doing it for like 3 years with him, and it's like, okay, all right, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
And so I just started going to like random people on AA, and I'm like, hey, dude, give me like $5 to write you a meal plan. You know what I mean? Like, let me help you. And I'd have all these people come to my house, and I like do meal plans for everybody, right? I did everyone in my family was on a meal plan. All these people, right? Just like, let me practice and do as much shit. Let me help as many people as I can, and like get more practice so I can, you know, do this. And then here we are.
I didn't even know about that.
6 years later, 7
I didn't
years
even
later.
know about that.
Yeah.
I had no idea that that's how it started.
And then, dude. And then, you know, at the old place that I worked, one of the other coaches got fired, and I was like, going into coaching, I was super apprehensive because I'm like, I can work with males because I'm a guy. I've gone through this myself. That's no problem. But I really don't have as much experience with, you know, middle-aged women. Like, I don't know how I'm going to work with them as well. Like, I just don't feel as comfortable. And that coach got fired. My boss called me and was like, hey, this so-and-so got fired. Can you take over his client load? I'll give you whatever, $20 a session. I'm like, sure, man. Sure. Dude, he sent me 14 women between the age of 40 and 60. Right? I was like, dude, oh shit. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, there's no way. You know what I mean? Like, and dude just threw me to the fire, pretty much. Threw me in the fire, and I, you know what I mean? Worked with all of them, and then eventually, as I worked with more and more of them, and that's kind of how it started, right? And then I got super comfortable with it, started, you know, got into competing a little bit with myself, and like seeing what I could, you know, like the addict side of the whole dieting thing is like bodybuilding, right? What's the most extreme form of dieting? Bodybuilding, right? Like, okay, well, I'm like, all right, well, that's perfect for me. I'm going to just try that. You know, what's the most extreme way to do this? Great, you know?
Yeah.
And, but that's helped me, right? Because I've gone to both extremes, and I've been able to see what it's like to be 100% on, the strict as it can be, and then like 100% off when I'm not doing anything and just feeling like shit about myself. And then I've been able to find a good middle ground, which is what I help my clients try to find, right? Is it's like, now that I've been at both sides, I know what it feels like to have a shitty check-in, dude. Like I say this a lot, like, every week, my meeting with Brad, when I was doing this, was like, that was the most important thing in my whole entire week, dude. Like, my whole week hinged on that little 30-minute check-in that I would have with Brad, right? Like, that was my whole week was based around that, right? And based off of how that meeting went, I would either have a really good week or a shitty week or whatever it was, right? And so, you know, when I meet with my clients, like, I make it a big deal, right? Like, everyone deserves my very best for that check-in, because I know how important that can be. That could be the most important 30 minutes of someone's entire week.
Yeah.
And I owe it to my clients to give them like the best education, the best coaching, the best I can do so I can help them be successful. My job is not to beat people up. And, you know, people all the time. Like, I'm so scared you're going to be mad at me. And I'm like, dude, have I ever been mad at you before? Like, no.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, Justin, the way that people like me respond is if you call me a fat ass. Like, come in here and yell at me and be like, dude, you fat ass, why don't you lose weight this week? And then I get motivated, like, oh, this motherfucker coming, right? And people like me, we think like that. And I've been sending people your way too. And I got one of my good friends, Philly, you know, Philip Garcia. We got him over there now. And,
Good.
Yeah. And I keep telling him, bro, he's like me. If you want to motivate this guy, call him a fat ass. Like, just being real.
He's motivated, dude.
Oh, he is.
He's got a bet on the line where he's got a bet with one of his buddies.
Oh,
so
here we go.
There we go.
That's him right there.
That's it, dude. So it's like he's gonna crush it, dude. Like, look, you follow this, you're gonna get results.
Yeah. So I spoke to him after you met with them, and they were like on a hike.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, oh well, they're doing it, so that's good. But no, dude, I'm really happy that you're taking care of the people that I'm sending over, because you know I feel like I'm a walking billboard, and I got a goal to hit, which is another 25 pounds. Yeah. And I definitely want to hit that before my birthday, right? I think it's doable, right? Especially with my schedule and everything I'm doing. But dude, thank you so much for coming in. Like, thanks for sharing, you know, your knowledge, and hopefully we hit on some stuff for some people out there who might be, you know. And I feel like Alen and I are just completely different when it comes to our the way that our physical health is and everything. He's got a lot of things that he's dealing with. I have a lot of things that I've been dealing with. Right. And I like that you're able to help both of us, so you can help a wide variety of people.
Everybody's different, man.
Yeah.
If it's not like personalized, there's no one size fits all in nutrition, right?
Yeah.
Like and that goes with everything. I can't sit here and be like, keto's bad, right? Because people like to hate on stuff. And it's like, well, if you have epilepsy, it's actually one of the best things you can do. If you're going through chemo or radiation, actually one of the best things you can do. Now, if you came to me and said, hey, what's the best way I can lose fat? I probably wouldn't put you on keto, right? But it's like, there's applications for everything. And it's like, as a coach, I think it's my job to be open to all of those possibilities and realize that there's a time and a place for everything, right? Depending on someone's circumstances, that could be the right fit for them. And what works for you might not work for Alen, but what works for Alen might not work for you. But it doesn't matter, because it works for you guys respectively, and that's how it goes, right? It's not, everyone's different. And you can't give two people the same thing, because they're just different, you know?
Well, let's give you a plug. So right now, currently, you're at Key Nutrition.
Yep.
You've been there for a while now. How can people reach you? What's your Instagram?
You can hit me up on Instagram. It's jmancuso91. I'm not super active on there just because I'm pretty busy with a lot of clients, truthfully, and I don't post on there. I should post more, but honestly, with how busy things have been lately, I just don't. That's another way to, you know, that's an easy way to get a hold of me, or obviously through you guys. And, you know, I'm taking new clients right now. I still am. I've got some openings as well. And for pricing, so typically the way our program works is a month-to-month program. So there's two options. You can either do your month-to-month option, or you can do a 6-month option. Either way, it's the same program. There's no differences at all. And the way it works is we meet 4 times a month, right? Every single week. So month-to-month is essentially, it's like a 2-month minimum, and that option is truly month-to-month. Then you can go for as long as you want or as little as you want. That option's $400 a month. Or if someone commits to do a 6-month program, then that drops the price to $350 a month. And either way, you pay monthly. And then anyone that sends someone in, you'll get 25% off of your next month. So there's some incentive there. But again, you know, it's like people like to say, well, that's really expensive. It's like, dude, some of these medical bills, like, you know, you know, that shit's expensive, dude. You're going to wish in a few years that you're like, shit, I wish I could have paid $400 a month. Like,
and that's the main reason why right now I don't mind at all.
Well, it's like, how much is your health worth to you? You know what I mean? It's like, put a price on that. You can't, you know, it's like, what price is it to you to feel good and have good quality of life, to have energy, and not to mention like how you show up in every other area of your life. Exactly. Right? Like, and I even told you when we first started, I was like, dude, you're going to kill it everywhere. Like, everything is going to get better. Yep. Not just you're going to lose fat. That's going to be secondary to all the other good stuff that happens. Like, a lot more stuff's going to happen too.
Yeah. And I swear to God, it has.
Oh yeah.
I swear to God, it has.
You feel amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
it's great.
And it's like, I didn't show you some weird like Japanese berry that you didn't know existed, and now you're losing fat all of a sudden, right?
Now I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, dude.
I'm laughing because I swear I wanted to start a business like that a while ago.
Yeah, of course. But it's just food, man, and how much you eat and relative to what you're eating. It's like, map it out. We'll dial it all in for you. You don't have to really do. There's no guesswork, right? I'm like, hey, Fernando, here are your options. You pick. Here's all of them. You choose. I'll never tell you, hey, you have to do this. But when I find new stuff, I'm like, hey, dude, try this out. Try this out. How does this sound? What is it? How does this sound? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we do, and I swear it's working.
Yeah.
So, dude, thanks again for coming in. I'll put your information down below so people can find you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Alen, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Also, thank you for seeing Justin now, so I have him more on top of his shit here at work.
Thank you for introducing me to him.
This guy would come in all the time like, bro, I've been sweating all night. I had a peanut butter last night. I'm like, what? Sweating all night? Bro.
Come to find out, you can't have peanut butter. Oh, okay.
Oh, my God. Okay. But, dude, thanks for being on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Everybody, if you want to get a hold of Justin, I'll leave the link in the description below. Also, you can call me or Alen. We can give you his phone number if it's not. If you guys don't find it there. But thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5